So you want to get Facebook ads and leads for your B2B company. You're probably going to have a hard time out the gate because it's definitely not the same quality as you would get on, say, a platform like LinkedIn ads where you can target by job title, seniority, industry, and team size. I'm Mudrich, and I have a ton of experience taking B2B companies from LinkedIn ads and Google ads over to Facebook ads and getting them able to scale while dropping their cost per lead drastically. So the first thing to be aware of when you're launching your campaigns on Facebook to get B2B leads is actually avoiding any of the common mistakes that comes along with Facebook campaigns. Now, I cover these in depth in my other videos, but just to keep things really short, you want to make sure you have really good ad creatives, good images, you're utilizing videos. In your ad copy, you're actually speaking to the target prospect. Basically, you can be a lot lazier or you can mess up a lot more on LinkedIn ads because you can get so granular with the targeting of who you're actually going after. But with Facebook, when it comes to B2B, you really need to get your creative testing, get your ad copy testing, and get your audience testing done in order to actually get high quality, cheap leads on Facebook. So in order to get these tests and get accurate sample data to optimize on, you need to make sure you actually have really good ads. Surprise, surprise. Another mistake to avoid on Facebook is actually setting really low daily budgets. Now, just because the CPM, cost per 1,000 impressions, and the cost per lead is going to be much lower on Facebook than a platform like LinkedIn or Google, you're actually going to want to increase your testing and increase your budgets on Facebook initially to figure out how to get those high quality leads. And I know this sounds counterintuitive. You're like, well, I would have to spend more on a platform that typically costs less. Well, there's basically this big hump when you're starting out in Facebook ads, and that's basically the data collection hump of finding those high quality B2B leads. So you're gonna try to find out what audiences are actually converting is the first one, and what audiences are actually good quality is the second one. You typically have to go in that order to figure out how to get high quality, cheap leads. So setting up very low daily budgets is gonna hinder this data collection process and hinder this phase of actually getting you to your end goal, which is transitioning away from these higher cost platforms and scaling up more aggressively and getting better cost per lead while keeping your lead quality high on a platform like Facebook ads. Now, I'm not saying you need $1,000 a day per ad set, and you need like 20 ad sets per campaign. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that even though the platform is cheaper, don't think that you don't need to spend way more money up front to get that quality data of who's gonna be a high quality lead. Because with LinkedIn ads and Google, it's so much easier to just get high quality right out the gate. The intent is high on Google and the targeting is really, really granular on LinkedIn when it comes to B2B. But with Facebook, you have to spend a lot more initially to get over that hump so you can optimize for cheaper leads that are high quality. This data is crucial for optimizing your campaigns. Basically, Facebook's algorithm needs to be fed massive amounts of data, especially when you want to go towards things like open targeting, which I'll talk about later, in order to get those lead costs down. On the flip side, you don't want to spread yourself too thin, having a lot of campaigns like a $10 daily budget or something like that. A good rule of thumb is have an ad set with 3x the target CPA for that audience. So if you're willing to pay $100 to acquire a lead, put your ad set daily budget at $300 per day. The last mistake to avoid when you're going on Facebook ads for B2B is actually targeting too broad of an audience early on. See, this is an easy mistake to make, especially if you're coming from another platform, because you want to actually cast a smaller net early on and basically cast a bunch of these small nets rather than just going after people who are 21 through 65, male, female, all placements, open targeting out the gate. You're not going to have good results. The better way to do it is actually just cast a lot of these little nets that equate to a big audience. So have your audience sizes at least 1 million per ad set. And if you don't have that, I'll talk later about how to get your targeting right. So let's segue into that. So in my next point, I'm going to explain how you can actually go more wide without shooting your quality in the foot. Then you're gonna run into things like high frequency when you're casting a lot of these little nets. So in this next tip, I'm gonna talk about how to get around that. So the second easy win when it comes to Facebook ads for B2B is getting your targeting nailed down tight. So taking all your customer persona, buyer persona data and try to feed it into Facebook's audience builder to see what kind of information you can find on them and what actually matches up. What can you actually target within their platform, because they don't have the same targeting parameters as a platform like LinkedIn. Once you've built out some ideal customer persona audiences, then you're gonna actually wanna experiment with some other type of audiences using existing data you already have. This is really, really cool. Because with this existing data, here is how we were actually able to drop another client's cost per lead down by 90+% while keeping their lead quality high. Basically, what you're gonna do is actually take a lot of customer data and build lookalike audiences into Facebook ads. Now check the link in the description. I actually have a full video where I break down the best lookalike audiences to create, and I go into detail about how to do this. But in a nutshell, what you're going to do is actually just upload all your customer data in terms of like first name, last name, emails. Personal emails are better than business emails because the match rate is higher, and phone numbers, especially if you have that too as well. And what Facebook is gonna do, it's gonna scan its database of over 1 billion monthly active users to find out who is most likely to be a lead compared to the data that you uploaded. So who has the most similarities to this data that are actually able to match to Facebook profiles. I know it sounds kind of complicated, but again, if you don't know what lookalike audiences are, check the link in the description. I break it down in massive detail. This is typically the lowest hanging fruit when you're trying to get high quality B2B leads on Facebook ads, is utilizing Facebook ads lookalikes and custom audiences, because they're really, really, really good. And it kickstarts your campaign because now you're gonna start getting cheap cost per lead while the lead quality is gonna be pretty okay. And then you're gonna be optimizing the pixel, so it's gonna start to be able to know who to go after more and who's more likely to convert and what's a good lead, things like that. But instead of you actually spending all that money on cold traffic campaigns, interest-based targeting, these other expensive audiences, you're just hitting the ground running with your existing data. I highly, highly recommend jumping into this method first when you're trying to get B2B leads on Facebook ads. The last thing is actually targeting granularity. So with Facebook, the more layering of targeting you do actually increases your CPM typically. So if you have all these interest-based, all these demographics, all these exclusions they have to match, and then you're manually picking the placements, you're gonna probably have high CPMs. What I like to do is actually peel back some of the exclusions first, do all placement campaigns. So maybe it'll show on Instagram newsfeed, or maybe it'll show on Facebook mobile newsfeed. You know, that's fine because Facebook's gonna start to optimize and put your ad where it thinks it's gonna perform best. But now you're at least not restricting where to put these placements, and therefore you're not getting penalized by high CPMs. Plus, the reason why this is so important in the beginning is because, remember, we're trying to collect data. We're trying to do this as cheaply, as efficiently as possible to get over that hump in the initial Facebook ads period of getting B2B leads. So by not limiting our placements and not adding so many exclusions or restrictions or filtering parameters when we're building out the audience, we're actually keeping our CPM low. So segueing into the next easy win when it comes to Facebook ads for B2B is actually segmenting out your audience. Since your CPMs are typically lower, what I like to do first is just test audience after audience after audience after audience after audience and look for things like engagement, likes, shares, landing page views. It doesn't have to be a booked call demo. You're trying to get some kind of idea of initial traction so you know which audiences to actually double down on and give more budget to get more sample data back. But since you can test so many different audiences for far cheaper than other platforms, I would be doing this right away, right out, just get the data out of the way and figure out who's actually engaging, who's actually clicking, who's actually becoming a lead. Do this audience testing aggressively early on and just rip it off like a Band-Aid, because basically some audiences are gonna respond better to your ads than others. And actually some of the audiences you thought would be cheap, cost per lead and high quality actually aren't on Facebook because different advertisers are on different platforms and they're bidding different amounts. Also, when it comes to segmenting out your audiences, now you can customize the creatives more to speak to that certain subset of audience. For example, if you're targeting HR positions in the software industry, your ad creatives can have an image or a video that resonates to them. You can have ad copy that resonates with them and a call to action or a lead magnet that resonates with them for much cheaper tests for that audience than on other platforms. So for example, if you're advertising to like HR in the software industry, you could say HR managers in X industry had this problem until our software solved it. Here's how. Something like that where it just resonates with that audience more. So when you're segmenting out your audiences, which you can target for much cheaper on Facebook than you can on other platforms, you can actually customize your ad creative, image, video, text, all these kinds of things more to speak to that specific audience to see how well they respond. So if you want to target CMOs in a certain niche for one ad creative, go for it. If you want to target the C-level founders and things like that, you can go for it, and you won't actually spend as much money on these audiences as you would on other platforms. So you can can get really creative with your testing and get really creative with your findings for a much cheaper cost per lead. That being said, I want to move into the next easy win, which is actually retargeting people through a funnel. So I did another video about this called Facebook sequential ads and what are they. Please check the link in the description because I give in-depth details about how to do this on Facebook ads specifically, and it's actually very well geared towards B2B and high ticket products. In a nutshell, instead of just targeting people with book a free demo now on Facebook ads, you might want to start with something lower friction, like download this free white paper for X, Y, and Z industry, or check out this free value video about how to do X, Y, and Z for this industry. Things like that are actually more value-based and less about jump on a call with me. Another way, again, because the CPMs are typically cheaper on Facebook ads, is you can actually drive people to a blog post or a page on your website that, again, is pure value or how-to type content, and maybe you have a lead upgrade on that page for them to opt into a free lead magnet. Now, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to spend so much time retargeting people when you think if they're interested, they would opt in on the first click or the first exposure to your ad? Surprise, that's not how they are engaged on Facebook. They're basically scrolling, looking at, photos of cats, pictures of families, and catching up. They're definitely not in the mode to be sold for some B2B enterprise software or jump on a free book a demo call. You really have to warm them up more. But the good news is you can actually do this warming up sequence without breaking the bank. Again, I'm keeping it surface level. I really recommend you checking out the video in the description about Facebook sequential ads. I really break down about how to do this, but let's move on to the next tip. Now this one is kind of generic because it applies to any kind of platform, but the last tip for getting cheap cost per lead or cost per sale or cost per book call for B2B on Facebook is really relating to the audience's problems, so it catches them while they're scrolling. This is key if you want people to even put their foot in the door to engage with you and even care what you have to offer. So what kind of problems does your typical audience experience? Here's something super actionable. Put that in the first sentence of your Facebook ad description. So a good example is have that first text, that first headline to say something that they are familiar with that pain point. One of the ones we do for our software ads is managing Facebook ads is a pain and time consuming. Here's how software X, Y, and Z solves that, right? So it's like anyone that manages ads it's gonna catch their attention and be like, well, yeah, actually it does take a lot of time and there are some issues with doing it that are problematic. So they might actually read more or watch the video, but typically the video is gonna snap them out of it the most. So that's what I highly recommend doing. In the video, you're actually going to detail out that problem within the first 3 to 6 seconds. In that video, it should open up with a line that identifies the problem that the prospect will identify with. And I find this is actually really good, going back to my other point about building up audiences to retarget through a sequence, because now you have people who are watching past that 3-second threshold because you've already identified a problem and hooked them in the beginning, and now they're gonna be added to another audience of people who will watch 3 seconds of your video, people who will watch like 25%, and so on and so forth, that you can then create more ads and retarget them with. I know a lot of this video is like high level strategy, and that's mostly because it's not really a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 to get extremely cheap, high quality leads with Facebook ads. It's more of a mindset and approach to the platform because it's gonna be different for every B2B business, and your price points are gonna matter a lot, and your first ask is gonna matter a lot. How much friction is it for someone to jump on a 1-hour demo call with you versus opting in for your free lead magnet? At the end of the day, the things you should be doing should be stacking the cards in your favor on Facebook ads to try to get over that hump and collect the data as quickly as possible initially so you can get better quality leads down the road. That could be things like lookalike audiences of your existing customers. You can also use some of your best performing creatives from other platforms as well, mentioning the pain points in the first few seconds of the video creative or the first sentence of your ad copy, retargeting people through Facebook sequential ads. There's a lot of things you could do right out the gate that's gonna increase your chances of success on this platform because you're immediately, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're gonna get a lot of crappy leads. So you have to get past that as quickly as possible rather than disregarding the whole platform as just being low quality lead generation. If you wanna know more about this, again, check the links in the description for all the items I covered, and I hope you got some value out of this video. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing, click the bell to be notified when I release new videos, and leave a like or a comment if you have questions. I'm more than happy to provide some more advice and answer them. My name is Mudrich, and if you need help at all with your Facebook ads for B2B, feel free to reach out to me and my team. More than happy to get back to you, and I'll see you on the next video.